Hi everyone, I'm Sinan, and in this video we are going to start the series which is your first game. So in this video what I'll do is guide you through the whole process of making a game in Godot game engine and teach you everything that you need to know about game development in 2D. So let's get started. Before that, just tell me how do you like this effect, and I just tried this out and I really like this. So anyways, on the bottom left panel you see there's a folder named assets in which we have a lot of sprites, and you can find these assets in the GitHub link in the description below, as well as I'll attach the link of the original asset pack. Also, I have made some changes in this as well, so make sure that you get this assets from GitHub itself. Anyways, if I go to this, I would see a folder named as sprites. So technically a sprite is an image. It could be an idle image or a still image for, let's say, an object, or a number of images which can be used to play an animation like a character. So that's about sprites. So if I go into this, I can see again a Captain Clown nose, which is basically our pirate. So if I click on this, and you see we have two options: Captain Clown nose with sword and Captain Clown nose without sword. So in this video what we are going to do is we'll start with the character itself, and I'll give you a brief over the things that you need to know about this character body 2D, or how to build your character. Okay, so in this what I see are a couple of animations. So if I go down a bit, I can see idle, run, jump, fall, ground hit, and so on. And if you click on this, the above one, you'll see more animations. So for the time being, let's go with the idle, run, and jump in this video, and then we'll obviously go into more advanced animation techniques such as the animation tree, but that is for a later video. Anyways, so what we want is to create the character itself, right? And for that I need a node or a scene, a character scene. So Godot in itself is composed of nodes and scenes, and something known as inheritance, which is a complete topic in object oriented programming, but we look at those computer science topics in the later parts of this video and videos to come ahead. So let's start. So if I zoom out and I want to create a character, for this I'll click on this plus that you can see here, and when you do that, what you'll see is this window popping up. So in this what you need to search is basically a character body 2D. Now the thing with Godot is very easy to transition to 3D game development, because most of the things that you'll use for this node 2D or 2D nodes, you have a 3D counterpart of them as well. So node 2D, you have a node 3D, you have a collision object 2D, you have a collision object 3D, and what you need is this character body. So I can select that, and what this would do is create this new scene. So on the right, currently it's on the nodes panel, but in general it's on the inspector tab, and this would have some properties of this character itself. Okay, so first of all what I would like to do is to rename this character to a pirate. So I'll click on this, and that would allow me to rename the node. So I'll call this as pirate. Okay, after that I can press enter, and now if you see, what you have is an error, and that error is saying that this node has no shape. So once you have a character, and character would have some properties, and one of the important properties is that it can collide with other objects like a platform. It should know where it is colliding with so that it does not cross the platform itself. Next is it needs to know how it interacts with other objects and other enemies, other players. So that is why a collision object is very important, and for that let's add a collision object. So for that, again, see this plus, click on this plus, again it would open this terminal or panel. In this what you need to search is for collision shape 2D. Okay, so what I could do is just select this, double click on this, and you would have a collision shape 2D. Now what happened was the error that we had on this character body 2D now jumped to this collision shape 2D. So now pirate is seeing that collision shape 2D is a child to this pirate, right? So the pirate has no more issues, but the collision shape itself has an issue, because if I click on this, right, and if I go to the right, I can see there is no shape provided to it. So I need to give it a shape, but I won't be doing that for now because I need to first be able to see the pirate itself. How does it look? And only after that I can decide what shape I should. Okay, let's do that. If I go on this pirate, what I'll do is add another child node, and this child node I would like to have a sprite. So in this we have two options. One is the animated sprite 2D and the other is the sprite 2D itself. Now sprite 2D in itself is used when you have a very simple animation, right? Or what you have is a still image, right? Well, let's say you have a barrel which is not going to move. So in that case, what you would be having is a sprite 2D. And so let's try with the sprite 2D, but for this particular, I'll be using this animated sprite 2D. So let's go with sprite 2D for now. And now if you go here and see, the sprite 2D has no texture. What I'll do is I'll select this one image, I'll drag it all over to the right texture and place it right there. And now you see there is something happening here. So if I just scroll up on my mouse wheel, that would just zoom in, and after that if I press F, the selected object would be centered on the screen. So that's good. The next thing is, what you would be observing is that the character is not clear, and the reason is that whenever you have an image, it is rendered. The term that is used is rendering. Same as in video, when you edit a video, then it is rendered, apply all the effects and animations and compile it to a single final video. So similarly here as well, we have the concept of rendering and how does an object should look on the screen. And the way that this is rendered is not the way a pixel art should be rendered. So what we need to do is to change some of the project settings. So for that, if I go here on the top left, click on project settings, and this would open this panel. Fine. And in this, what I want to do is to update some of the rendering options. So let's go to this textures tab in this rendering, click on that, zoom out, and what you would see is this default texture filter is set to linear. So let me just drag this a bit below, and what I would do is change this linear to nearest, and look what happens. So when I do this, the pixel art becomes way clearer. So that is good. It's good. I can just close this and we are good to go. So we have the sprite, but what I want is to not have this as a single image. I want an animation to be played, and although you could do this, what I'm going to show you with this animated sprite 2D, you can do this with the sprite 2D as well, but for that you need an animation tree as well, and animation player and animation tree if you want, but I don't want to get into that advanced nodes right now. So what I'll do is I'll right click on this and just delete this node. So again, we don't have any texture or any sprite. So for this, as I said, I'll click on this pirate, click on this plus, and what I want is an animated sprite 2D, this one. So if I click on this, you would see an error, and that error is because there are no sprite frame resource created. So that's pretty simple. If you click on this sprite and if you go to this right and see this animation drop down basically, and if I click on this, you would see sprite frames, but this is empty. There is nothing there. So what I want is to add the sprite frames, and if I click on this and then click on new sprite frames, nothing would happen on the screen. But look at this bottom panel. So if I click on this right now, just observe what happens on the bottom. If I click on this, a new panel would open, a new window would open on the bottom. That would be all about this animated sprite. Now let me give you a brief introduction. On the left hand side, you would have all the animations that you have in this sprite frames, and technically you can just rename all the animations. So for this default, I want to rename this to idle. So to rename this, just click on this once and that would allow you to rename that portion. So click on enter and that would give you an animation named as idle. But on the right hand side, you can see nothing. So that basically means that you have an idle animation, but there are no images to display for those animations. So what I'll do is, basically there are a couple of ways to doing this. One is through this add frames from file. So I can select this. This would open this file structure menu. Click on assets Captain Clown nose, sprites, Captain Clown nose, without sword, idle, and I can just select all of them by holding shift and select all of them. Click on open and you have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if you press play, see your character is now moving. Now if you actually go to the link of the original asset from where I've downloaded this, there it is written that all the animations are running on 10 frames per second. So for that, just update this 5 to 10 and that would update the frame rate to 10 frames per second, and that actually looks more natural. And we do have an idle animation where the character is actually just standing there, nothing is happening. And you see there is something known as this animation looping. So if I just unselect this, the animation would stop playing because it has played it once, and then so I want this to be played continuously, so I'll keep that enabled, and again you'll see nothing is happening because it is not playing. Again, I can pause it any point of time. Okay, so we are good with this, and what I want is to have another animation, which would be the run. And so for that, what I'll do is I'll right click on this, or I'll click on this add animation, and then you would have a new animation. And if I click on this, I can see this idle animation, but as soon as I go to this new animation, this is not of this new animation. So anyways, so for this new animation, what I want is to call this as run, and I'll close this. And the second way to add all the images is, this was, I already showed you how to do this. Second way is go to this folder directly, select this one and hold shift, select all these sprites, and you can just place it here. If I press play, it is running. That's it. And I can change the frame rate 10 frames per second. And if I click on this idle, this will show the idle animation. If I click on run, this will show the run animation. Okay, so the next thing is the jump. So for this, what I'll do is I'll add another animation and I'll rename this to jump. And for this jump, I have 3 frames. So one is, okay, so I'll just drag and drop all of them, or I'll show you the third way how to import these images. Okay, so the thing is, if I just drag this here, see, what I did was to take these 3 images and I stitched all those images into a single image, and you have a sprite sheet. So these individual images are sprite frame, multiple of them are called sprite frames, and when you have stitched all of them together into a single image, that is known as a sprite sheet. So for this Captain Clown nose and all of these animations, you would see there is a stitched version as well, which is not exactly in the original asset pack which was available on the internet. And for this, I just wrote a simple Python function to do this, and this is just for demonstration purposes. We are not going to use this in the remaining part of this series. This is just a demo that through which you basically understand how to deal with different types of assets. So again, I'll just right click this and delete this. I don't need that. But if I go to animated sprite 2D and in this jump, so for some reason if you are not able to see this panel, just click on this sprite frames, you would be able to see this. So in this jumps, if I use this, that won't do the job. I need to use this add frames from sprite sheet. Click on that, click on this assets, click on this Captain Clown nose, sprites, Captain Clown nose, again without sword, and for this jump, and I'll use this jump stitched.png. So what this would do is give you a single frame, and you would see something like this. So again, if you just scroll up to zoom in, that is not working. So hold control and then zoom in. So if I do this something like this, this would do just that. Now, if you see the sprite sheet, how many frames do you think we have horizontally? For this, we have 3 frames horizontally. So in that case, I would change this to 3. So you see we have this vertical bars at the correct position. Now, vertically, like from top to bottom, vertically, how many frames do you think we have? So as much as I can tell, we only have a single sheet or single frame vertically, 3 horizontally but 1 vertically. So what I'll do is I'll change this vertical to 1, press enter, and see, now you have these sprite frames. So what you could do is either have these individual frames as images, or what you could do is just chop up the images within Godot and use those as frames. Now you have to select those images, and you can select this first one, second one, and then third one. And the order in which you select, you would see a numbering on the top as well, 0, 1 and 2. Those are actually the ordering. So if I unselect this and select this and this, so 0, 1 and 2, and this messed up the order that in which we need to import. So 1 and 2, this should be the way. I can click on add 3 frames, and anyways, even for some reason you shifted a sprite here and there, you can actually move frame right and move frame left. You can just reorganize them in this bottom panel using these buttons. Just hover over them, they will tell you what they are actually doing. So now if I press play, you are seeing this jumping animation, right? And again, the frames per second should be 10. And now what you could see is something is happening, right? So this is not how jumping looks like, because what this is trying to show is it is jumping again and again. It is looping, and again, this is because of this looping thing. So disable this looping. So you have this. So for this idle, if I play, you have this idle animation. For this run, you have this running animation. For this jump, you have this initial squeeze and jump, and it stops there. And this is what we want. Okay, another thing is, what I want is to have this animation like this idle animation, and what I want is this pirate's feet should be aligned with the axis, and not aligned but touching the x-axis. So if I just zoom out by doing this, zoom in like this, what I want is to select this, and I can just move it around and drag it somewhere out there, something like this. Now you see the feet is aligned, but what I want next is this to be aligned with the y-axis. I want this to be centered. Why? Because I have some level of OCD. Okay, so anyways, this is good. If I go to this animated sprite and I can press play, this is idle. His feet are touching the ground. For this run, it is touching the ground, and for this jump, it started with touching the ground. I think so. Yeah, it started with touching the ground and then it went up. So that's good. We're good though. We are actually good with this. So what I can do is I can just close all of these directories, because again, OCD reasons. And what I would do is I could still see this error. See, if I click outside this, that would close the animation panel. Okay, so the thing is, I want this series to be a mile wide and a mile deep as well. I don't want this series to be a very surface level series. So that is why I'll be going into a lot of depth on minor things, and that would make the length of the video longer. But I think these things are necessary to be taught over and over again. Anyways, so we are still able to see this collision shape 2D error. So how do we rectify that? Click similarly, or simply just click on this, go towards the right, and what you need to do is select the shape. And for this one, if I click on this again, I would have a lot of options like this to select a lot of possible shapes. And for this, I would go with a rectangle shape 2D. Now you have a capsule shape 2D, rectangle shape 2D, circle shape 2D, ray shape, depending on whatever is your situation, you can choose. But more or less for characters, either you would be using capsules, circle, or a rectangle. So I'll be going with this rectangle shape 2D. I can select that, and if I just zoom out, I can see this object, this square bluish rectangle. Okay, so what I want is this to be, I would select this and I would drag this down, and what this would do is bring this in front of it. And now this brings us to the concept of this structure of this left panel. Now this pirate, this is a scene, right? This is the character scene, and the topmost node is the pirate, and this node in terms of computer science is known as the root of the scene, or a root of a tree. And why a tree? Because this is actually a tree structure. So from a root there is a stem, and it is now branching it into two different nodes. And technically these animated sprite 2D and collision shape 2D are in itself a tree. And yeah, I can go a lot into this trees and stuff, but yep. And in computer science, the root for tree is at the top and the leaves are at the bottom. Whereas in real life, you just flip it over, root is at the bottom and leaves are at the top. just a small thing about computer science. So what I could do is, if I just zoom in a bit by scrolling up, what I can do is select this dot. I can drag this somewhere about that point, select this dot somewhere about that, and what I would do is just to make a rectangle that covers his body. And just after that, we don't have any more errors. If I go into animated sprite 2D and if I press this idle, this is still within the bounds. Anyways, what I could do is I can take this and drag this a bit down as well, so that's fine. And if I run, this is still within the range. And if I jump, again, this is still inside this rectangular box. Okay, now this brings us to the concept of, let's say, how do I say this? Consistency of the asset. Now, the reason that we are able to do this thing very easily is because the assets are made in such a way that this alignment is proper throughout or consistent throughout the asset pack. So what would happen is that it would not always be the case that you have this collision shape, the animation, the frame rate aligned in a way that is easier for a developer to use. So for different animations, you would have different frames per second. You have to test it out many a times. And the next thing is, you might sometimes have to scale the sprites. For adding collision shape, you might require to use some code to readjust or replace depending on the animations, because more or less your assets would not come from a single source. You would have put all of his effort in making this consistent. So yeah, that's about it, because this asset pack is really good. And just to tell you, we are going to use almost all of these assets present here. At least that is what I did in my demo project. What's next is saving a scene. We need a way to actually save the scene, and that is obviously quite simple. Standard Ctrl+S. So I can press Ctrl+S, and that would give me a path where I can actually save. And what I want is to save this pirate in a separate directory. So what I would do is I would click on this plus, create a new folder, and I would name this as player, and this would store anything related to the player. At least that is what I'm thinking about. So I'll click OK, and I am in that player. So res directory is this directory itself. This has the assets directory, this has the players directory. If you want to see it, this is assets and players. So we are currently in this player directory. Directory is another name for folders. So in Windows, you'll call them folders. In Linux or Mac, you might call them directory. It's just a preference. Okay, in this, I want to save this pirate scene. So what I could do is add, yeah, this is fine. I thought of adding some folders for scenes and scripts, so but it's just a single scene, so I'll just save this. So save. So we have this pirate scene and we have this pirate, and we are technically good with it. So we have this pirate, we have this collision shape, and what I like to do is to keep this collision shape in the end or behind every other node, so that it is not visible till the time I actually want to see it. So that's about it. Again, you see this star is indicating that it is not saved or there are some changes made from the previous. So press Ctrl+S to save, and that is good for this. Now what I want is to actually use this player in a scene where I can move them or move this player. Okay, so now what I want is to actually have a level where I can use this player and move it around. So let's make another scene. Now if I click on this plus to add a new scene, or yeah, let's go with this one, add a new scene. And what I want is to click on this plus and add a node 2D, and that would be our base level for a 2D scene. So I'll click on this to rename this to level and press enter, and then I would save this. Currently it is asking me to save this level in this player directory, which I don't want, so I'll go one step up the parent folder, and here I would create a new folder by either right clicking or clicking here. So I'll right click, new folder, and I would name this as levels, and with that I'll click on OK, and in this I can save this level.tscn. So in Godot, every scene is saved with an extension of tscn, so that is something that you should know. So save, and we have this saved level. Now if I hold the middle mouse button, or you can just use this, not this one, where is it, this hand one, either you can drag it or you just hold the middle mouse or the wheel button, press on that, and through that you can also move it. So what I want is to create a level, and before that we need a platform where I can keep my player. So for that, what I'll do is click on this plus, as you can see here, click here, that would open this panel, and search for static body 2D. Now as a character body 2D is a node for all the characters and the movement, collision, all of that stuff, static body 2D is another body which you cannot control directly, or technically you should not control, and the job of this is to stay static, not to move at all. And you would see there is an error because any type of body in Godot needs to have a collision shape to tell Godot that what all points it can actually collide with. So for that, what I'll do is click on this plus, and I'll search for again collision shape 2D. Either I can select this directly from here, or I can select this collision shape 2D from here as well. So let me go with this one, click on this, and you would have a collision shape 2D. Now we have two errors, not just one, we have two errors. So the thing is, this collision shape 2D should always be a child to a node which requires a collision shape. So a node 2D does not need a collision shape 2D, a static body does. So what I'll do is I'll take this and I can drag this over to this static body 2D so that you are able to see this square boundary, right? I can drop this there, and now this is a child of this static body 2D. Again, this is a tree struct. This level is the root node of this scene. The static body is a child of this level. This collision shape 2D is a child of this static body 2D. This collision shape 2D is a grandchild of level, right? And this level is grandfather of collision shape 2D, or this level and the static body 2D, both of them are ancestors of this collision shape. And the static body 2D and collision shape 2D, both of them are descendants of this level node. So that is some basic tree terminologies that is used in computer science. So yeah, again, we have corrected the error of the static body 2D, but now we have an error with the collision shape itself. And now you know what to do to the right. See, there is no shape, so let's select a rectangle shape, and through this we have this square collision shape. So if I just zoom this like this, I can zoom it in, and if I press F on my keyboard, this would center everything. Now, last time I showed you to select a corner or an edge and drag it to the required position. And this, what I would like you to do is hold Alt, and while holding Alt, select a corner and move it around. And what this would do is allow you to scale this proportionally in X and Y direction. And here we have a thin rectangle, which would be currently our platform. So I'll rename this static body 2D to my platform, and the platform has a collision shape. So that is fine. Okay, that is good. Now again, if you see this level, there are some changes which are unsaved. So what I'll do is I'll press Ctrl+S to save them. And now what to do? Now what I want is my player also be in this scene. And the way you have to do is to instantiate it as a node, right? This is a node structure on the left, and whatever you see here is displayed here. So what I want is a node of this character body of this pirate in this level scene. So what I'll do is I'll select this level, and if I try to click on this plus and search for pirate, I won't be able to find it. And the reason for that is that it is not a standard node, or basically it's not a standard class which you can actually search for in this node tree. Later on, when we would be going over some state machine creation, there we will actually create our own nodes for this, right? That would be actually visible here, but that is for a later part of the series, not this video. Anyways, rather than having this as a node, child node, what I want is to instantiate a child scene. So in this, what Godot does is that it treats the scenes itself as a node. And since you have made your own tree-like structure of this pirate, or basically this scene, this in itself in totality would be treated as a node. And technically this is the beauty of inheritance and the basics or the 4 pillars of object-oriented programming. Anyways, for this, what I want is to go over this instantiate a child scene. So if I click on this and zoom out, you'll see this is popped up, and here you will see all of the scenes that you have made till now. And what we want is this pirate scene to be visible in this level scene as well. So if I click on that, see, now you have a pirate here. So what I want is to drag this and place it a bit up, and what I'll do is I'll save the scene. That is fine, that is good, it's great. Now for this collision shape 2D, I would want it to be a bit longer. I'll select the middle one, zoom it in, select the middle one. While holding Alt, I can stretch this something like so. I am good with this. I can save the scene, and now I actually want to see this level in action. I want to see this running, and to do that we need to press play. And when I press play, you would be asked this menu or this pop-up that no main scene has ever been defined. Select one. You can change it later in project settings under the application category. Fine, we are good with it, and technically what we have to do is select the current one. But before that, I would like to go over some project settings that I want to have that is good for my screen recording app and good for whatever, and it looks good to me. So for that, go on this project, click on that project settings, and that should open this panel. Now in this, what I want is to go into this display, and for this I'll click on this Windows, and I would like to update some of these properties. So for this viewport width, I would like to have the dimension of my laptop, which is 1920 cross 1080, which is good. And the reason is because almost or majority of the gamers around the world have a resolution of 1920 cross 1080. So this resolution would support majority of the players. Now for the mode, I like to have it as full screen, and that is something that I just prefer. And what I'll do is I'll close this or close it from here. Now I'll click on this play, select the current, and just wait what happens. So this is what we are seeing, what is happening. So the thing is, our player is actually on the top right, which is something we are not able to see. So I'll press Alt plus F4 to close this, and what I'll do is I'll click on this debug and click on visible collision shapes. So when I do that, and now if I press play, what this would do is, see, you are actually able to see slight bluish color. I hope you are able to see this, and that is the collision shape. So I can just close this, and what I want is to show you what we are actually seeing. So if I just zoom out, and I hope you are able to see this, there is big rectangle, this blue rectangle right here. So you have this blue, this pink, and this greenish blue. So this rectangle is what you are actually seeing when you press play, and this is something we want to change. Now we don't want to see this. What we want to see is the player or the pirate. So for that, we have a new node that would allow us to manipulate what we are seeing on the screen depending on where the pirate is. And that is very simple to do. Click on this pirate, click on this plus, and search for camera, right? Camera 2D. So just select that and add it as a child, save the scene, and just press play. And with this, you are actually able to see this platform and the player itself. So that's good, but it's too small, right? So what I can do is I can just zoom it in, right? We have a camera, right? I can just zoom in the lens. So what I would do is click on this camera, and in the zoom, I'll go with zoom as 4. So you see what happened when this was on 1, you had this pink rectangle, and when you changed this to 4, this became a smaller rectangle. I can save this, and if I press play, I can see our player, I can see our platform, and this is quite big. So what is happening? We are not able to see any animations that we made, and the reason for that is we have still not given life to this player. So let's now do that. I close this, and I can just zoom it in. So this is our level, this is our player. And before we get on with this thing, I want to tell you that is I really want to do this YouTube as a full-time career, and for that I would need your help. If you're finding this video helpful and valuable enough, I would love if you could subscribe. Yeah, that's it. So let's get on with this. So let's go to the Sprite, and to give it life, what we want is to give it a script. Before that, let's go to the Sprite, this animated sprite 2D, and in this idle you have something written here, which is the autoplay on load. So whenever you load this scene, or whenever this scene is a node in any other scene, what I want is to play this idle animation. So I just press this, and you see there is a slight pop-up on this idle, which is autoplay on load. So what you could do is you could actually call this button from the code itself, but why to use code if you can just click on a button? So save this, and if I press play now, you could see our character is actually moving. Good, that's good. So now what I want is to give this player some life, and you give it by attaching a script to it. So click on that, and this would ask to name this as pirate.gd, which is just an extension for GD script. So we are going to write some code. You don't need to understand a lot of it, but a brief understanding of coding would actually help, but you don't need it. And for the template, we are going to use the basic movement as a template, and yep, I can just create it, and that would give me this script. Now you see this is quite small, it's not clearly visible. So what I'll do is click here, and I can just press Ctrl and plus to zoom in, and that would give me a bigger area to work with. Now we also have this panel, which I don't need for now, so I'll click on this, and that would give us even more space. Now you see there are some things that we are able to see, so let's go over it a bit. So starting with extends character body 2D. So all of these functionality is for this character body 2D, or extending whatever character body 2D has, and you're adding some more functionality. So what this script is doing is this is extending character body 2D. So whatever properties you have in character body 2D, you have those, but you also have these as well, right? Now you have a limit of speed, a jump velocity, if not is on floor velocity something, and you have a lot of stuff, but the main thing that you have to observe is this function, physics process, delta, and move and slide. These are the main things that you need to focus on right now. So a physics process. So a physics process is called in every, let's say 60 times a second, not exactly, but every physics frame that passes on, you call this function 1. But you just for now think of it is this is called multiple times in a second, and this function is totally associated with all the physics things associated with the character body. For example, the gravity, velocity, distance, displacement, acceleration, everything that is to be concerned with physics, it is going to be done here in this function, even rotation as well. Okay, so the very first thing, if is on floor is, if not is on floor. So basically if character is not on the floor, add some velocity in the downward direction, and this delta is the time gap or time frame between two consecutive calls of this function. I'm not going into a lot of detail right now, but it will get clear later on. So if input is action just pressed is UI accept and is on floor, and this is saying that if you are receiving an accept key, which is basically the space bar, and you are on the floor, then you jump. So basically this is saying if you're not on the floor, you add the gravity to the player and you accelerate downwards. And this is saying that if you're on the floor and you have pressed the space bar, you have to jump, and this would get you a direction. See, UI left, UI right, and if direction, do this, otherwise do this. So let's look at this input.getAccess. So I don't understand what this getAccess is. So I'll press Ctrl, I'll hover my mouse over this function, and I'll click on that. And what that would do is actually bring up the documentation of Godot. So get gravity, get current cursor shape, get joy axis, get joy GUID, get joy info. So everything that you want. So if I click here, you see you have this document. I can go back to this pilot, I can go back to this input. So let's say for this get access, I'll press Ctrl and click on that, and this is the get access function. So negative action, positive action, it takes two types of action, negative and positive. So this is specifying two action, one negative and one positive. This is the shorthand for writing this thing. So whatever this is, this input.get action strength, positive action, and this one, whatever this is a short. So if I go back to the Sprite.gd, so if you press the left arrow key, you would technically be saying that go left, and when you press the right arrow key, it is technically saying go right. So if you're pressing left and right and you add these two numbers, -1 + 1, what you get is 0. If you press just left, it means -1. If you press right, it means +1. So left, right, and if you press none, the value would be 0. If it's both, the value would still be 0 if you sum them up. So if direction, so that means either you're just pressing left or if you're just pressing right. In only that case, the direction value would be either -1 or +1. And if that is the case, you need to update the velocity of the x direction in this particular direction, and it should have this speed. Similarly, if direction is 0, that means you're not pressing left or right, you are still. In that case, the velocity in x direction, if it is non-zero, make it 0 or slowly move towards velocity.x 0 at this speed. And this is the function move and slide. This move and slide is the function that allows you to actually move in the scene. I'll save this function, and what I'll do is I'll run this project. See, now if I press spacebar, I can jump, I can go left, I can go right, and we do have a basic movement of a character. So left, right, and jump. Yep, that's good. But the thing is, go back to 2D or this in this level scene. If I'm going right or left, I'm still seeing the idle animation. I don't want that. What I want is to play the running animation when I'm actually moving, and I want to play the idle animation when I'm not moving. So let's do that. If I go to Pirate and the script, what I could do is, so to handle this animation, which animation to be played when, I can create a function. So function handle animation. Now I want to handle the animation, and what this would take is no input, and this is going to return void. So that means whenever you call this function, function is not going to return you anything, right? And what you want is this animated sprite to play the running animation when you're moving left or right. So if velocity in x direction is something, it's non-zero, what I want you to do, take this animated sprite 2D, and I want you to play the run animation. So if I press play, see what happens. So if I move, nothing happens. And why is that the case? Because I'm never calling this function. So this function, this physics process is being run multiple times in a second. I've never called this function. So what I would do is, before this move and slide, or even after this, I can just call this handle animation, and now this would do the job. Now look at this. This is currently idle. If I go right, it is now trying to run, but it is now not. I can go left, I can go right, I can stay still, but it is still running. So the thing is, initially it was idle because autoplay on load. Now after that, I tried to move it to the right, and the animated sprite is trying to play the run animation. Now what I did was, I called this node that you see here, this animated sprite 2D, is now being referenced in this function. So whenever you call this function, it would go and find this animated sprite 2D and start to play this run animation. Now otherwise, what I want is, I want the same thing but to play the idle animation. So that would do our job. So if I go left or right, I can see the running animation, but I stop, it is playing the idle animation. Now still there is something missing, and that is the direction. Even if I go left, the character is facing right. So I'll close this, and what I'll do is write another function. So function handle direction, and this would also return me nothing. And the job of this handle direction is to turn the animation or animated sprite according to the direction. So what this would take as an input is the direction itself. And what is this direction? Is of type float. Why float? Because if I click or press Ctrl and click on this get access, you are returning a float. Okay, so going back to this, so I'll say that if direction is greater than 0, that means it is facing right. Okay, so if direction is greater than 0, then what I want is this animated sprite 2D to flip horizontally to be false, because it is already seeing right hand side and the direction is also right hand side. It should not flip it otherwise. Else if or elif animated sprite 2D dot flip edge. Okay, so else if, that means if direction is less than 0, I want this to be flipped. So basically, if my direction is greater than 0, I should keep facing right. Otherwise, if it is less than 0, I should face left. Okay. And now I would just handle this direction, and I need to pass this direction as well. Pass this. Okay. So handle direction, and I'll pass the direction. So if I press play, see what happens. If I go left, it is looking left. If I go right, it is looking right. If I move left or move right, it is showing the running animation. And if I'm not moving, it is showing the idle animation. So one more thing, you must be wondering, if not, you should, that what happens if it is 0. And if the direction is 0, you don't change this value. You let it be whatever it is. So let's say if I say if direction is less than equal to 0, right? Or if I mean to say, this is also equivalent to saying else. If direction is greater than 0, this should be true. Otherwise, this should be the case. So if I save this and I run this, see, it is facing left. If I go right, I can go left. But if I go right and leave the key, it is automatically facing left. I don't want that. If my last key press was right, my player should actually look right. Close this and I'll just undo this, and that is good. I play this. If I go left, it is looking left. If I go right, it is looking right. So depending on whatever is the last key, it would still maintain that look or that direction, even though I can jump as well, right? So let me just close this. And for this animated sprite, for the sprite frames, what I want is to add another animation, and that would be the fall animation. And in this, again, I'll go to asset and find this fall animation. And if you observe, there is only a single image. We'll take that and drag it all the way here, and we are good with this falling. Now what I want is this character to show the jumping animation when you're trying to jump, and falling animation when you're actually falling. So we need to do something in this handle animation. So for this, what I could do is I can just run this or write the code for the jumping thing. So the thing is, you can only play this animation when you're actually on the ground. So you cannot run while you're in the air. You cannot stand while you're in the air. If you're in the air, you're either going up or going down. You're not staying still. So I'm saying if is on floor and if it is not on the floor, you have to do something. Otherwise, do this. And for the time being, write pass so that it does not throw an error. So through this, what I'm trying to say is, if it is not on the floor, do something, basically playing the jumping animation. Otherwise, if this is false, that means it is on the floor. And if it is on the floor, you have to play either the run or the idle, depending on the velocity in the X direction. So if it is not on the floor, how do I know if I'm jumping or I'm falling? I technically don't know. So basically, if I take this and drag it here, and I'll do this later on. So when do I know if I'm jumping or falling? So I know one thing, that generally in mathematics, if you go towards the right, it's positive. If you go towards the left, X is negative. If you go up, Y is positive. If you go down, Y is negative. But in computer graphics, everything that you measure is from the top left of your screen. So if you, for the X-axis, if you go right, X would still be positive. If you go left, X would be negative. But as soon as you go up, Y would be negative, and if you go down, Y would be positive. And that is something as a convention that is followed. So if velocity dot Y is greater than 0, and if velocity dot Y is greater than 0, that means I'm trying to go down or I am going down. So what I want is this animated sprite 2D to play, or not pause, play the fall animation. So let me just try this out. If I jump up, and if I'm falling, I can actually see the falling animation, but I'm not able to see the jump animation because I've never written one. So otherwise, what I'll do is I'll just play this animated sprite dot play this jump animation. So if I press play, if I jump, it is showing the jump animation, and then it is falling. But if you see, this jump animation is actually looping. But if you remember, in this animated sprite frames, and in this jump one, we have not played the animation looping. So what is happening here is, whenever you are trying to jump, right? So if you are not on the floor, you are trying to play this, But what happens is you played these 3 animations, and immediately after that the player is still trying to go up, right? And since the player is still trying to go up, it is not actually looping, but it is again calling this playing jump animation. So technically you're yourself calling this jump animation again and again. There are multiple ways of doing this, and for the moment the straightforward way would be to actually click on this one and you increase the weightage of this frame. So you see this frame duration is 1, this is 1, and for this let's make it 10. So into 10. So that means whatever time duration you are playing for this, play this, then play this, then play this, but 10 times in a way. So this is 10 frames per second. That means 0.1 second. This would be played for 0.1 second. This would be played for 0.1 second, but this would be played for 1 second. And that is how you change the weightage of any frame. So if I say this, press run, if I jump, it is not looping. I can go left, I can jump left, right, and yeah, we are actually able to jump and move around. So we do have our player, right? Close this, and technically we are done with the basic animation thing and the direction. So what is left? The thing that is left is I have to press spacebar to jump, and I cannot use the up arrow key to jump. I can go left and right, but A, S, W, D are not working. So what is the thing? If I close this, the thing is, you see this UI accept, UI left and UI right are some standard keys already assigned to this keyboard. So we need to update the input map, and input map is basically a mapping of a particular action with particular keys. So UI left is the name of an action, and that is called when you press the left arrow key. Similarly, UI underscore right is an action associated when pressing the right arrow key, and UI accept is the one with the space bar. So let's just update a couple of things. So for that, you go back to this project, click on this settings, and here you have to click on this input map. Here, if you click on that, you would have a couple of things, filter by name and add new action. So what I want is a function or an action for the left direction. So I want an action named as left. So what I'll do is type left and click on add. I also want a right action, click on add. I want a jump action, click on add. And later on we'll add the attack and aerial attack, ground attack, things like that. But for this left action, I need to assign it a key. So for that, assigning a key is you need to click on this plus right here. This is for adding an event. So click on this and this would open this pop-up. Now what you have to do is, you see, this is listening for in. So whatever key you press will be configured for this left action. So I'll press this left arrow key and I'll click on OK. I'll click on this again. And now for left, I also want the A, and that would also be assigned to this left arrow. So if you press left or if you press A, both are for the action left. Similarly for right, I'll press the right arrow key, OK, plus D for right, OK. For this jump, I want 3 keys. So first one is the up arrow key for jumping, OK. Second is for the spacebar itself, OK. And the third one is the W for jumping, OK. So we have this. You see, we have left and A for actually going left, for right actually going right, and D as well. For jumping we have 3, up, space and W. I can just close this, and if I press run and if I press spacebar I can jump, but if I press A, D or W, nothing happens, right? Why is that the case? The case is I've not told Godot that you have to jump on when you actually receive the jump action. So in place of this UI accept, what you have to write is just jump. For this direction, UI left, you just write left. In place of UI right, you just place right. Save this, and if you go back to the story scene in this level, I closed it in this level, and if you press play, I can go left, right, I can jump using spacebar, I can jump using the W, up, left, right, D, S or D, A and W. So all of these keys now. So I can close this, and this finishes a very basic introduction of creating a character, and later on we would actually delete most of the things, most of the code that we have written, because we are going to use some advanced topics in state machines, animation trees, animation layers, and that would make your job very, very simple if you just understand it. So the only thing is about this animation tree and all of these, it is very simple to do, but it is very difficult to grasp it at the first go. So yep, that is the video 1 of your first game development series in Godot. I hope I was able to explain this to you, and if you like this video, drop a like. If you don't like it, drop a dislike, but in that case you need to tell me what I could do to improve this series, improve this video, improve this channel, because I'm looking for criticism, I'm not looking for hate. But if you're sticking around, thanks for watching, and drop anything that you want to see in my future videos. I'll definitely make a video, or at least I'll try to reply back to you. So yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.